on the website following the meeting.
Yes.
As well. Okay, thank you very much. And we'll move on to the first item, which is the minutes of the meeting of 30th September 2023 for approval. Second item is the declaration of interest. Members are asked to declare any interests that you have in any items in the agenda. It would be helpful if members expressed why they are declaring an interest in the item concerned. So members in the chamber, please do so now by pressing your microphone on or remotely through Teams by using the raise hand function. There are no declarations of interest. Okay, move on now to the reports. Oh, I have need to bring in and just waiting now for the commander.
They're actually online now, yes.
They're online.
Scott Gibson. Was there somebody else? Ah.
Okay, I'd like to welcome Commander Scott Gibson and Group Commander Dougie Campbell for the meeting. And I would like to invite Mr. Gibson and Mr. Campbell to take us through their performance report.
Thank you very much, Convener. I trust that the Convener members can hear me okay. So good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for the invite along today to allow you to scrutinise our performance over the reporting period across the Western Isles. So things have been progressing quite well over the reporting period within the area. And I'll begin by just covering some areas of ongoing work across the SFRS over the reporting period before handing over to Group Commander Campbell just for a little bit of more local context. So first and foremost, my apologies for not being able to be there in person today. I was on a visit to one of the other islands yesterday, so I didn't get back over till last night. So I would have rather have been there in person, but I'm sure we'll manage as we're accustomed to now over Teams. So the first thing I was going to mention was the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service Local Fire and Rescue Plan for the Western Isles. So I trust that members have received a communication from myself in regard to this and the decision by the Scottish Fire and Rescue Board to postpone the development of the new fire and rescue plans. So like all public bodies, I'm sure you'll be aware that we're all facing financial challenges. And in May 22, the publication of the spending review gave us as SFRS a flat cash budget for the resource and capital spending up to 26-27. So the decision to postpone the development of the new local fire and rescue plans based around this, we developed a package of change proposals to address these challenges that we face this year. As mentioned in previous communications, in the temporary withdrawal of the 10 appliances across Scotland and some other measures that were put in place to make the required savings in year one. However, in coming years with this flat cash budget, we will need to carry out future changes and we will be consulting on any proposals to make any permanent changes next year. Therefore, it was at this point that we couldn't put our hand up and say, can you consider local priorities when we know that more change is going to come. And in the meantime, we're carrying out a complete review of our current plan and we'll be able to share these reports with you by the end of the year, and this will be used to help us inform our development for the service changes next year. And we'll obviously be including yourselves and any other key stakeholders in regard to any future changes of provision of service of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service across any of their areas. So that was just on the local fire and rescue plans. Obviously over the reporting period as well, you'll be aware through other communications that we've changed our response to unwanted fire alarm signals. So that new policy came into effect at the start of July. So you'll see from our report today that there's not been a huge change in the number of unwanted fire alarm signals. However, I would expect to see this fall sharply given the early evidence that we're starting to see come through on the change in this policy. So just to let members know that I will be reporting on that in future meetings, and I'll keep you up to date with how that's going and what we're doing with that additional time that we've managed to release from that change in policy. Moving on to the report itself then, I trust members have managed to scrutinise the report, and as mentioned at previous meetings when since I've started up here, I did plan and have now updated the format of the report, and I would hope that this has given members a clearer picture of our activity within the Western Isles and just put more of a spotlight on some of the other work that we're involved in away from our operational activity, as well as reporting on the statistics of our operational activity. You'll see from the performance highlights page that we've seen some slight increases across our indicators. I would caveat that with them being really low figures and no cause for me, no cause for real concern. The slight increase in accidental dwelling fires is evident, but again, very low figures, and all these have been classed as what we would say are low severity. However, as members will be aware, even low severity accidental dwelling fires has a huge impact on those that are involved. So we do continue to work with the local communities to reduce these as much as we possibly can. I mentioned the UFAS. Within the report as well, you'll see our enforcement teams have been really busy in the reporting period doing a lot of work around the short-term lets. We're seeing quite a significant increase in the numbers of these coming in across the whole of the area. So that's been quite a significant piece of work that's involved our fire safety enforcement teams. And I'd just highlight also, in addition to that, the good availability across the majority of the Western Isles over the reporting period of our appliances and our crews, and just thank the crews on record for their dedication, given the numbers of staff that we'll have in some of these areas, and just to reassure members that it is a continued focus of mine, the recruitment and the retention of staff in all of these areas, to make sure that we do provide the maximum response service that we can. And then finally, in Appendix 1, you will see some of the great partnership working that we've been involved in particular the successful fire skills course that we completed during the period, which, well, hopefully it's planted the seed for some of our future workforce. That's just one of the potential positive outcomes from these types of courses. If we can get into people's heads at an early age, we can see if we can put them towards a career in the fire service. We will continue to build on this, and as I've said in previous meetings, community safety work that we do is one of my main areas of focus, and I think we can see some great results from it across the area, and we'll also ensure that we're targeting those who are most vulnerable within our communities. That concludes my overview of the report. I'll hand over to Group Commander Campbell to see if he wants to add any more of the local context on the report itself. Thank you.
Just like thank Scott for his words there. Yeah, if I could add a few bits and pieces to the report. Basically, I'm going to take you to priority 1 on page 8. The accidental dwelling fires that the area commander already picked up on. There has been a slight increase, but it's just to give everybody, a bit of reassurance that after any incident, we carry out post-domestic incident response visits to the houses around about the area where the incident took place. So just to reassure, they're really a reassurance visit, as well as offering a home fire safety visit to the community as well, and we'll still work to push these figures down. Priority 2 on page 11, it's already been touched on as well, that the certain numbers, really delighted with the numbers of audits have been carried out as far as the non-domestic audits for this year, and we're currently got one post-fire audit to be carried out next month as well, on the back of one of the fires that we did have. So again, we're taking active steps to bring these numbers down. If I may go on to priority 4 then, and again, the area commander touched on some of the real positive work that's taking place just now. We'll continue to drive forward with recruitment as well. So we've got 10 potential trainees in the system currently, which is a great figure on the back of the fantastic numbers that we achieved at the earlier part of this year and last year as well. So I'm absolutely delighted with that, and I think we've got to be honest with ourselves and say that the driver training department are doing quite well today, but the sounds of things as well, as you can hear. I was right on cue. They're obviously making positive. I didn't ask them to do that, unfortunately. They're making positive differences in the stations to bring that driver numbers up, push the driver numbers up as well. And it's probably worth a tenner in his wages for that one. There's obviously prep as well that I've talked about in the chambers on a number of occasions that we're carrying out the stations. So just as a wee reminder, this is where we bring in potential candidates into the station before they actually join us, to give them an understanding of what the job entails, what the requirements are for them. Also gives our stations an opportunity to have a look at the candidates themselves and decide whether they're a fit for us, which is also very important. Putting anybody through the process for us it costs a great deal of money, and it's a positive step for us that we can actually take that chance to look at candidates as well and maybe take a decision that they're maybe not a fit for us, as we talked about previously. But in most cases, it's really about the candidate looking at the commitment they've got to put in for joining us and decide whether they can actually commit to that. So again, that's a really positive influence in our numbers. The road traffic collision courses we carried out one this year as almost a trial in the area, and we're delighted to say we're going to run 3 or 4 next year, depending on numbers. So again, a positive, very, very positive for the area. Joint mobilising, I briefly touched on that in the scrutiny last time because it was something we were doing almost informally in the area. It's now been formalised and is in a trial nationally, with selected areas running with it, and we've had now 6 instances where we've joint mobilised, which basically means where we've got 2 stations that are usually side by side, where we don't have a full crew in either station. We can join, as long as the right skill attributes are in place, we can join 2 stations together. The one I used previously was Great Bernard and Valtos was a good example of bringing the 2 stations together at a given point, and they proceed in one appliance and mobilised an instant. It means that we increase our mobilising times, and we also mobilised every instant, as we talked about before. So it's been a positive step, still in the trial period, but my hope is that will be rubber stamped. It'll become just part of business as usual for us going forward. The area commander also touched on the partnership working. So again, we've taken steps forward to improve that in the area as well. And we have carried out quite a lot of training with the Coast Guard this year within this recording period as well. And it's been almost 2 different areas we've covered. So we've carried out their lost and missing person technicians course. So we've taken part in that, which basically assists the fire service to go alongside the MCA or the Coast Guard, should I say, and assist in any missing persons that they have, which unfortunately we do have a few of in Harris, Lewis and Euston in any given year. And we've also had just lately a skill day where we've brought in the Coast Guard and the ambulance service and mountain rescue into the fire station, and basically they've done a show and tell, done skill stations, and then run a small exercise. And it's just so that all the partners understand the capabilities of each other, the equipment we carry, how we can utilise it, and how we can work better together. So it's been a real positive addition to the training we do in the area, and hopefully again for community safety, it'll improve that going forward. So that covers the bits I want to pick out from our report, but quite happy to any questions.
Thank you very much for your report. Thanks both Area Commander Gibson and Commander Campbell. Any questions either in the chamber online or online? I'm seeing a hand up. Is it Councillor MacLeod? Yeah, Councillor Ian MacLeod.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Scott and Dougie, for that report. I was kind of interested in particular in the station down here up in Beckla and driver availability. I keep, granted it's only hearsay, I keep hearing that we're always short of drivers, we're delayed waiting for a driver from another station when there's calls. I just wondered where we were at with getting some more drivers trained there. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Councillor. I appreciate that. Yeah, we've got an additional driver from the last reporting period. There's one additional driver in Mid-Beckla, and we've got a second in the pathway just now who we were hoping to get in a course this week actually, and unfortunately was unavailable. So well, hopefully by March, we'll have a second additional driver in Benbecula, which will make a big difference to availability. So we are taking steps forward to improve that numbers of drivers locally as well.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any other questions from anybody, either online or in the chamber? I just had one myself. I was really pleased to see the youth engagement side of things, but I couldn't help noticing that it was mostly young women rather than boys that had taken up the opportunity. And I did wonder, was that, you know, was it just open to chance that that's the way that fell, or were you pushing to try and recruit, get more girls to that?
I'll start if you want, convener. I'll answer that and then bring Group Commander Campbell in. So the fire skill course is a bespoke course that the fire service run. It's a kind of off-the-shelf course that we've created and produced, and we've run for a number of years now, and we've run a number across the Western Isles. It's usually through a partnership approach on the selection of the students through utilisation of community learning development or any other areas of education that people feel that their students would benefit from it. So I've spoke to my group commanders in each of my areas about these courses, and I think the fire skills course is absolutely fantastic in that the confidence it builds in students and the team ethos and the just creating better citizens across the board, I suppose. And it's something that I've asked them about developing further. So in Shetland, we've just completed the first year of a bespoke pilot on a youth volunteer scheme with our colleagues in Police Scotland. So it's a joint approach because of the rurality and the geography of the areas. We sometimes struggle to get the requisite students for each of our individual youth volunteer schemes. So the idea of this pilot was to see if it worked by doing this joint approach, funding it together, and then you kind of do week about, if you like, with ourselves in Police Scotland. And that way it's a bit less commitment, and you're still getting the number of students that you would like to see on these courses, as opposed to try and running two separate schemes. So I've asked my team on Western Isles about perhaps looking at something like this. And another area I would like to branch out to in the community safety side is looking at the older demographic as well. So that may be 18 to 20, early 20s. So perhaps around about the community justice side of things, where we can bring people in, as we've done in other areas across Scotland, bring this age demographic in, try and take them out the community justice system by just teaching them some general life skills, interview techniques, teamwork, confidence, and hopefully, again, from that, put them out the community as ready to go out in the community and just be better citizens and pick up employment and do that side of things. So I think it's just by chance, the demographic that we found on this course, and Dougie will be able to keep me right on the demographic of previous courses, but I'm sure it was probably swayed in the other direction in previous ones. But it was just to add that bit of context in some of the community work we're doing and some of the stuff that we're going to be trying to push going forward. Dougie?
No, you were there. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, just to add to what the area commander was saying there, yeah, absolutely. It's very much a joint partnership approach to deciding who's on the course, and people that are available, and the people that are interested in doing it. And that's it is slightly random how the numbers come together, but always positive about obviously bringing more females into the station and trying to encourage them to join. I mean, it's in the scrutiny report. You can still see our numbers certainly don't reflect the community as far as the male and female numbers. So certainly something we positively push for is to get more females into every station where we possibly can.
Thank you very much. Any more questions to either of the gentlemen from any members? I don't see any more questions. So with that, can I ask if members agree to note the report? Thank you very much. That report is noted, and we thank you for your attendance and for your report. Okay, we move on now to item number 4, which Chief Inspector Mackenzie has given her apologies. So we welcome Superintendent Dave Ross, who's attending the meeting through Teams. I'm going to now invite Superintendent Ross to take us through the police performance report.
Afternoon, convener. Afternoon, members. Can you hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to come along and present. And as you allude to, it's the performance report up until March of this year, March 31st. By way of introduction, I'm obviously the Superintendent in charge of operations for Highlands and Islands. So oversee some of the work in the Western Isles along with the other parts of the division. Hopefully you've also had a chance to read the report in advance, but if it was okay, I'd like to pick out some key points and then after add a little bit of context as to where we're hoping to take things forward over the next coming months. Clearly the report's very much a statistical breakdown with an overview of some of the clear challenges and some of the opportunities that are bid. And obviously looking to highlight the fact that the comparison data through COVID obviously has its own points that we have to take cognizance of because demand wasn't the same at that point. So it's always about bearing that in mind as we look through it. I suppose the highlights that are faced by everyone and not just in policing are the costs of living and how that has a knock-on effect in terms of our communities, both internally, externally, and in terms of crime and other impacts and the vulnerability that also brings. We're obviously very committed in terms of our proactive activity towards substance use and how it's affecting the local community, particularly in Western Isles, and that's indicative in terms of some of the reporting statistics on the report. I'm also very conscious of the fact that fraud remains very high and how it's a vulnerable crime indoors, the ability of that and how that brings challenges both in terms of how it affects people, but also in how we actually bring that through to fruition in terms of detection and bringing people to justice and keeping people safe. And obviously, I think it's been mentioned in previous meetings as well in terms of technology and the implementation of technology. Now in Police Scotland, we're still progressing that to bring us into the modern age in terms of some of our systems and some of our functions, some of our processes, against the backdrop, I suppose, of a very challenging financial picture. The local policing priorities remain as agreed and as previously documented, but at a glance, I suppose, looking just at some of those high points. Road safety and road crime. Overall, road crime offences have increased by circa 25 more offences over the reporting period, which again up until March of the 31st. And I think it's been previously mentioned to the group about the support from road policing on the mainland that come across on a regular basis to do that proactive work on the islands. And I think it's also been mentioned in terms of the potential for drug wipes. I think that's been mentioned at previous boards. So just to give a bit of an update in respect of that. That's moving to the pilot phase in Shetland with a view to being rolled out into the Western Isles early next year, depending on the demand, the training and the abstraction rates of that. But again, that's good progress in terms of that tackling road safety and road crime. In terms of antisocial behaviour, overall it's reduced by 18% against the 5-year average and a slight decrease in terms of previous year to date. And again, I'm also very conscious that it's been recently raised about the issues of antisocial behaviour locally, and the area commander and Siar Mackenzie is obviously, as chair of the Youth Justice Subcommittee, has held regular meetings with key partners. I think some of the spikes were in October, which on a bit of analysis shows that's been over the last couple of years. So again, there's opportunities there to meet with that short life working group and that practitioners of different partners, and primarily for diversion and intervention of with social behaviour and making sure that where we can, we achieve outcomes for everyone involved, people, the families, and the communities. But again, that's a joint partnership work stream, which takes a lot of effort, and we understand that. But again, that's in its early stages, and they're working on a weekly basis with that. Acquisitive crime, I suppose, is the other one I would highlight. And again, I suppose it's a reflection of societal changes. Acquisitive crime has increased by 45%, which is a significant hike in the reporting period. Although in context, that does have a detection rate of 100%. But again, from our perspective, it's intervention and prevention where all possible. So we have done a lot of work with premises in terms of security, safety, rights, layouts, etc., to try and reduce the opportunity, and thereafter taking offenders to prosecution where applicable. In terms of protecting vulnerable people, again, crime has increased by 11%, which reflects in 6 incidents, but obviously protecting the vulnerable still remains a priority for the organisation, clearly the Western Isles as well. And again, that's something that we factor in as an ongoing reflection of everything we do and making sure that we protect everyone that is vulnerable in our communities. Serious and organised crime, again, overall drug offences have increased by circa 65 further crimes over the reporting period. And again, that's very, very pertinent in terms of how we do things. And I think, again, it's been raised at previous boards about exploring the opportunities for a Dogs Against Drugs charity model, which has been successful elsewhere. And that's obviously been progressed by the Chief Inspector Mackenzie in the drug and alcohol partnership arena. And obviously look to see how that progresses over the coming months. In terms of counter-terrorism, some may be present on a recent exercise, Safe Steeple, which occurred on the 20th of September. Again, that was a tabletop-based exercise based on a multi-agency response to a marauding terrorist attack. And again, a number of shared learning opportunities from the various agencies that attended. Over and above that, you're all aware, but the extra regarding the pub watch is obviously now up and running in Lewis and Harris, and again supporting licensed premises, because a lot of the incidents are indicative of having involvement in alcohol. So again, that's working reasonably well. Most of the majority of licensees managing their own premises appropriately, and again, we'll continue to monitor that in the coming months. And then the only other aspect that I'd highlight over and above any questions is the assault on emergency workers, which again is still too high in terms of the statistics and the number of officers that are being assaulted while affecting their duty. And there is no patterns and there is no repeat offenders as such, but unfortunately it's still reasonably high for our liking, and that's a national aspect and not just local to the Western Isles. Over and above that, the statistics probably speak for themselves. There is lots of activity in the last 6 months to address some of the emerging issues, just as highlighted there in that summary, but more than happy to stop and take any specific questions. And if there's anything I can't answer, I'll certainly take it back to the next meeting if there's anything specific for Chief Inspector Mackenzie.
Thank you very much indeed, Superintendent Ross. Any questions either in the chamber or online? Councillor Donald McSween.
Thank you, and thank you for the going through the report with us. Just a couple of the statistics jump out to me. There's like theft by shoplifting. I think it was domestic crime. There's a few of them on drug possession as well, where there's significant increases. Is there a trend? Are you aware of any trends as to what's leading these increases? Are they related to drug incidents? Is it a change in reporting? You know, what can you give any more information about that?
So first of all, theft by shoplifting, it's not just focused on the Western Isles, it's across the whole division, and unfortunately across the whole country. There's been a significant increase in that in general. In terms of reasons, costing primarily will be an issue of that. What we are trying to do is that intervention aspects in terms of layouts of premises and enforcement where possible, but the volumes are significant, and that is reflected elsewhere. But not in the case of repeat offenders or anything like that locally. In terms of domestic crime, yeah, that figure is quite significant, I suppose, the best way of describing that. But I would put that down to increased confidence in reporting, and people are more confident moving forward and telling the police on how things affected them. Obviously, vulnerability, and make sure that
I wonder if we could try that answer again. You're breaking up quite badly, and we didn't really hear the domestic part, the domestic crime aspect. The line was very poor. I wonder if you could try it again.
Apologies, I'm the same with yourself, convener. So domestic, can you hear me a bit better now?
Yes.
Yeah, apologies. It's a bit the same coming back. In terms of domestic, what we're putting at to increase confidence reporting. And obviously that allows us to be aware of the more vulnerability and managing that in respect of safety planning beyond the incident itself. And obviously we take all those instances very seriously in terms of ensuring that every opportunity is done to investigate the crime proportionately and appropriately, but likewise putting in safety measures to ensure that there isn't any further occurrence of that. In terms of themes or issues specifically, the Western Isles, nothing that I would raise over and above obviously this difficult situation of increased volume. Is that
Thank
better?
you.
Apologies.
Yes, I think we could hear you better there. Thanks very much.
Apologies.
No, not at all. Anybody else got any questions? Did you want to come back in, Councillor McSween?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a question in general, which isn't really about the report that's before us, but maybe an update on something. Are you okay if I ask that?
Yeah.
I promised I would ask this anyway. I'm aware that there's funding in place for a police officer to be working with the Nicholson, and
No, I think as my understanding is that funding isn't going ahead.
Okay, well, I was told yesterday the funding was in place, but recruitment was challenging and it was ongoing. I was just trying to get an update on that, on what the position was.
Are you able to clarify anything there?
My understanding is the same as yours, convener, that the funding wasn't there, so therefore we couldn't progress the recruitment aspect of it. I will get that feedback to the member in due course. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think we got that. Yes. Any other questions from any other member? Any or questions or observations even? Not seen anybody else. And I think you covered everything that I had picked up myself in reading. So in that case, all that remains for me to ask is if members agree to note the report. Yes, thank you very much. And to ask you, thank you very much, Superintendent Ross, for taking us through the police performance report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your forbearance with the crackling there. I think we more or less managed to make out everything we had to. We move on to item number 5, outcome delivery report. And this is a report by the Deputy Chief Executive. The report is for noting and presents the half-year progress of the 2023-24 departmental strategic priorities for the Deputy Chief Executive Directorate. And the Deputy Chief Executive will speak to the report and answer any questions.
Thank you, Chair. As members will note, there's a new style of report that focuses in on the corporate strategy and the various components within the corporate strategy. Due to the nature of the Deputy Chief Executive's Directorate, the report is long and captures a lot of information. The items relevant to the Community Safety Board refer to the Consumer and Environmental Services and are outlined at paragraphs 740 and 741 of the report, which is on page 8. The focus for the Consumer and Environmental Services, as per each report, is on the delivery of their annual service plan. Happy to report that good progress is being made and they're on target. You'll see there the amount of different activities that the service has been involved in over the period. So, for example, 220 food interventions, 55 export health certificates, and what has been a significant element of work for the service has been around short-term lets. And as you can see there, they have processed numerous applications with 700 submitted since April. Budget issues in regard to the service are on page 12, with the Consumer and Environmental Services elements at 8.2. This shows the service well ahead of budget, performing well against budget, and the service projecting to come in on budget by year end. Mr. Fraser is here and is able to answer any questions of detail, but happy to take any thoughts, questions or observations myself at this point, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions, anybody either in the chamber or online? Councillor Ronald Fraser.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question for Colm regarding short-term licensing. Do we have any indication as to what figure of income this has brought into the council so far?
Figures for that. We've got it from the number of applications and the type of applications. If we've got the total income, it was in the budgets. It was in the balance sheets before the incident.
And so, as a process, do you believe that it wipes its own face with regards to its finances, or does it cost the council, or does the council make a profit?
I think it wipes its face at least with it. I mean, the license fee is primarily to do with the licensing process. It doesn't necessarily deal with enforcement or follow-up action to do with the licenses. So the whole scheme may have further cost implications, but on the whole, the level of compliance in the islands has been very good. So we are not expecting significant levels of any enforcement against operators within the scheme.
Okay. Just a note for the committee, Chair. I've had a few constituents get in touch with me regarding this process, and I'm hearing figures of to be fully compliant of between £800 and £1,200. So it is a significant cost for those individuals who are embarking upon holiday letting, and it is taking a considerable amount of money out of our island's economy. So just a comment there.
I think there's a number of different things in there that are worth disaggregating. I think the council's approach to setting the fee was to wash our face and not make it as an income generator. Certainly, when the scheme was being brought in, we wanted to minimise costs on business. So the council's element of it has been to try and minimise costs, although that is open to review, and in future years that the council may take a different approach. To get a business up to standard, they may have to require to invest, and that is up to each individual business, the level of investment they want to make and how much investment they want to make. But if they are compliant, that there will be to make them compliant, there will be a level of investment required. In most cases, I would imagine.
Thank you. Any other questions for either Mr. Fraser or Deputy Chief Executive? I see no further questions. So insofar as the board's interests are concerned, do members agree to note this report? Thank you very much. We move now on to board meetings for 2024, a report by the Chief Executive. This report seeks agreements of the dates for the scheduled meetings of the Community Safety Board for 2024, and you'll see the proposed 2024 meeting dates detailed at 2.3 of the report. Want to say anything?
Nothing really to add to the report. It follows a meeting pattern from this year. That just to remind members, the twice yearly reporting from Police Scotland and Scottish Fire and Rescue Services will occur at June and November series. If there is no items of business for any of the community safety boards, the meeting can be cancelled, but we're just seeking to agree a schedule of meetings following this year's pattern.
I had thought we had taken the fire and the police so they wouldn't appear together. That was my recollection, because obviously there weren't a lot of questions today, so it didn't really matter. But I remember another meeting which went on quite significantly, and I think the fire were waiting for the police or vice versa.
Yeah, previously both would report to alternate meetings, and there'd be three times a year for one of the services in any year. Both requested to go to yearly reporting, which the Comhairle is doing as well for its performance monitoring. So it brings everything in line with that. if we were out with the June and November series, the information would be quite a bit out of date.
Okay.
So,
Right.
but we would look to minimise the agendas for these times to allow sufficient time for
Yeah,
that reporting.
that makes sense. Thanks for that clarification. Do members then agree the recommendation is 3.1? Everybody happy with that? And that leads us on to item number 7, reports outstanding. And there are no reports outstanding. And so therefore, you know where the next meeting is because you've just agreed it. So that concludes the business. Thank you very much to all of you for attending.
Thanks, Chair.